True strength comes from the ability to flow with the moment, accepting that each instant brings a new configuration of possibilities.
The obsession with control is like a prison we build around ourselves.
When we cling too tightly to control, we become rigid and brittle, like a bamboo that does not bend to the wind.
True freedom is born when we develop the trust to allow life to unfold naturally.
Hello, I am Ruby Oliver, and today I bring you an extraordinary conversation about a theme that profoundly affects our modern life: the illusion of control and how to grow amidst chaos. I have the honor of hosting two extraordinary masters whose wisdom transcends time and cultures. On one side, Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary Japanese samurai who brings us the strategic perspective of the warrior. On the other, Osho, a great revolutionary master who guides us through the paths of consciousness and inner liberation. In a world where everything seems increasingly unpredictable, understanding the dynamics between control and freedom has become essential for our emotional survival and personal growth. How can we transform our relationship with chaos? Is our obsession with control preventing us from achieving a deeper freedom? In this episode, we will explore how to transcend our self-imposed limitations, learn to flow with changes, and discover a more authentic way of being. You will understand why true power does not lie in mastering everything, but in developing the wisdom to navigate the unknown. Let's start with a fundamental question in today's world. Musashi, in times of chaos, what does it really mean to have control over one's own life?
Let me explain this from a practical perspective, Rubian. Having control over one's own life in times of chaos is like being a warrior on the battlefield. It is mastering the art of adaptation and strategy. In chaotic situations, where everything changes at every moment, true skill lies in maintaining a firm posture and a keen eye, as I describe in the Book of Water. Imagine yourself as a river. Instead of fighting against the stones that block your path, you flow around them, changing shape but always following your course. It's about acting with intuition and clarity, without clinging to prejudices or fears of the future. Timing is essential here. Just like in martial arts, where synchronization and response to the opponent's movement are vital, in life, it is necessary to recognize the right moment to act and the strength needed to stand firm in your values and choices. Therefore, having control is not about dominating all external aspects, but about mastering oneself, being flexible, and acting with purpose, regardless of the chaos surrounding you.
Fascinating analogy of the river. Musashi, Osho, I would like to hear your perspective on the same question. What does it really mean to have control over one's own life in chaotic times like ours?
Look, Rubian, having control over one's own life does not mean dominating or imposing our will on external circumstances. In fact, it is exactly the opposite. Self-control involves cultivating a deep internal awareness, where we are able to observe and understand our emotions, thoughts, and reactions in the face of tumultuous situations. Imagine a boat in a storm. If the captain lets his emotions dominate him, he may lose control and sink. However, if he remains centered and attentive to what happens around him, he can navigate with more serenity, regardless of the waves. True control comes through centering. It is when, even amidst chaos, we find a space of tranquility where we can self-observe. This often involves practices like meditation, which help us silence the mind and connect with our true essence. In times of disorder, perhaps the greatest act of control we can exercise is simply allowing situations to unfold while remaining anchored in inner peace.
What profound and complementary perspectives. Musashi brought us the wisdom of the strategic warrior, while Osho guided us to a deeper understanding of control. I learned that true control is not about dominating external chaos, but about developing our ability to navigate it with awareness and adaptability. Let's explore more about this in our next question. Now let's explore something truly intriguing. Musashi, in a world where everyone seeks absolute control, do you believe that modern man can learn to see lack of control as a higher form of freedom?
Rubian, this is a deep question that deserves careful analysis. Yes, lack of control can be a higher form of freedom, but we need to understand this from the perspective of adaptation. As I mentioned earlier about the importance of flexibility, this connects directly with this idea. It's like wielding a long sword. You need firmness, but also fluidity. True mastery does not lie in rigid control, but in the ability to adapt instantly. Like a samurai in combat, we cannot cling to a single plan. We need to respond to the present moment with intelligence and flexibility. The lack of control I mentioned is not about chaos, but about freeing ourselves from the shackles we have created. It's about transcending our self-imposed limitations and finding a more authentic way of being. When we embrace this perspective, we discover a freedom that allows us to transform and adapt, like a fluid dance with the circumstances of life.
Osho, how do you see this issue of lack of control as a higher form of freedom in the context of modern man?
Rubian, modern man lives trapped in his own obsessive quest for control. It's interesting to observe how this need to control everything, emotions, situations, relationships, actually reflects our deepest insecurities and fears. Imagine a leaf being carried by the wind. Its beauty lies precisely in its surrender to natural movement. Conscious lack of control is like that leaf that does not resist the current, but flows with it, discovering a freedom that transcends our limited understanding. This is not an invitation to irresponsibility, but to authenticity. When we allow ourselves moments of true spontaneity, whether laughing until we cry, dancing without music, or expressing deep emotions, we discover a richer dimension of existence. True freedom lies in recognizing that even lack of control can be a genuine expression of our being, a doorway to a fuller and more authentic life.
Extraordinary how both visions complement each other. Musashi shows us how letting go of rigid control can make us more adaptable, while Osho reveals how this freedom connects us with our deepest authenticity. I now realize that true power does not lie in controlling, but in consciously flowing with life. And you, who become more aware with each video through this content, please help us reach further here on YouTube. Leave your like and comment on what you think of this content, including tips for new themes for other videos. Now returning, I would like to ask you, Master Musashi, is the relentless pursuit of control the greatest obstacle to true personal growth? How can we transcend this need that seems so ingrained in us?
Rubian, this search for absolute control is like trying to hold sand between your fingers. The tighter you grip, the more it slips away. In my experience, true personal growth happens precisely when we allow ourselves to let go. It's like observing nature through the seasons. It does not try to control its transformation, it simply flows with natural changes. When we cling too tightly to control, we become rigid and brittle, like a bamboo that does not bend to the wind. In Kendo, we learn that perfect technique does not come from obsessive control, but from harmony between mind, body, and spirit. The warrior who clings too much to a fixed plan loses the ability to respond to the present moment, becoming predictable and vulnerable. True growth comes when we accept impermanence and allow ourselves to flow with circumstances, maintaining our essence while adapting to changes.
And what about you, Master Osho? I would like to hear your perspective on how the pursuit of control can limit our personal growth.
Rubian, the obsession with control is like a prison we build around ourselves. When we are constantly trying to control every aspect of our lives, we suffocate our own nature and that of others. It's like a plant that needs space to grow. If we confine it in a pot that is too small, it will never reach its full potential. True growth happens in the space of freedom, acceptance, and spontaneity. This quest for control is a symptom of our unconsciousness, an illusory attempt to find security in a constantly changing world. Real growth happens when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, when we accept that life has its own rhythm, and when we open ourselves to the unknown. It is in acceptance and free observation of our being that we find the deep roots of true growth.
Impressive knowledge. I now understand that true growth does not lie in controlling life, but in developing the wisdom to flow with it. Let's continue exploring these profound truths. Now let's move to a provocative question. Musashi, what is more powerful? The illusion of control or the acceptance of uncertainty? How does this dynamic affect our journey?
Rubian, the acceptance of uncertainty is infinitely more powerful than any illusion of control. It's like a sword duel. Those who cling to predetermined movements, believing they have total control over the fight, they end up becoming predictable and vulnerable. True strength comes from the ability to flow with the moment, accepting that each instant brings a new configuration of possibilities. On the warrior's path, we learn that mental rigidity is our greatest enemy. When we accept uncertainty, we become like water, adaptable, fluid, and, paradoxically, more powerful. A warrior who embraces uncertainty develops extraordinary mental clarity, as they do not waste energy trying to control the uncontrollable. They remain present, attentive, and ready to respond to what arises, allowing their strategy to emerge naturally from the circumstances.
Fascinating perspective on the strength of adaptability. Musashi, Osho, how do you see this dynamic between the illusion of control and the acceptance of uncertainty?
Rubian, the acceptance of uncertainty is the gateway to true freedom. The illusion of control is just that, an illusion that keeps us trapped in a mental prison of our own making. Think of a tree trying to control the wind. It's a futile and exhausting effort. True wisdom lies in understanding that we are part of something greater, a natural flow that cannot be controlled, only experienced in its fullness. When we accept uncertainty, we discover an inner strength that transcends any form of external control. It's like a river finding its way naturally, not through force, but through acceptance and adaptation. In this conscious surrender, we find a deep peace and clarity that no illusion of control could provide.
What depth in both perspectives! Musashi shows us how the acceptance of uncertainty makes us strategically stronger, while Osho reveals how it frees us from our own mental prisons. I realize that true strength lies not in trying to control the uncontrollable, but in developing the wisdom to dance with the unknown. And speaking of wisdom, let me give you an incredible tip. Did you know that it's very easy to get ahead of 99% of people, succeeding in everything you want for your life? I'll leave a link below in the description to a book that changed my view on various aspects of my mind, and that has been helping thousands of people find clarity and confidence to achieve their goals and dreams. Don't miss it. I'm sure you'll love it. Now, to continue our exploration, we come to a fundamental question that touches on everything we've discussed so far. Musashi, can true freedom only be achieved by letting go of control?
Rubian, true freedom transcends the simple abandonment of control. It's a delicate dance between letting go and maintaining awareness. It's not about indulgence or irresponsibility, but about developing a wiser relationship with life. In my experiences, I've realized it's like an archer who, after years of practice, stops trying to hit the target and simply allows the shot to happen naturally. True mastery arises when mind and body are in such harmony that each action springs spontaneously from the full awareness of the moment. When we free ourselves from the shackles of the mind and rigid expectations, we reach a state of nothing, where distractions dissipate and clarity emerges naturally. It's in this space that we find true freedom, not through obsessive control, but through the ability to flow with the circumstances while keeping our essence intact.
Osho, how do you see this relationship between letting go of control and true freedom?
Rubian, true freedom is impossible while we are chained to the bonds of control. It's fascinating to observe how we become slaves to our own need to dominate, whether over ourselves or others. When we try to control, it's like trying to imprison the wind in a box, a futile effort that only generates frustration and suffering. True freedom is born when we develop the confidence to allow life to unfold naturally, maintaining our conscious presence without interfering in the natural flow of events. This letting go is not an act of weakness, but of profound wisdom and trust in life. When we abandon the illusions of control, we discover an internal space where love can flourish freely, where our relationships become more authentic, and where our own essence can manifest in its natural fullness.
Extraordinary how these perspectives intertwine. Musashi shows us how true freedom emerges from conscious harmony, while Osho reveals how letting go of control opens us to a deeper dimension of love and authenticity. I now see that freedom is not about controlling or completely abandoning control, but about finding a new way of relating to life, more fluid and conscious. Now we come to a crucial point in our exploration. Musashi, are discipline and control synonymous? Or is there a fundamental difference we need to understand?
Rubian, this distinction is extremely important for understanding the true path of personal development. Think of discipline as the constant cultivation of a Zen garden. It's not about controlling every grain of sand, but about consistent dedication and clear purpose. Discipline is like the rigorous training of a warrior, which goes far beyond physical movements with the sword. It's a deep commitment to one's own development, shaping not only actions but also character and mindset. Control, on the other hand, is more specific. It's like the precision needed during a single sword strike. It's the ability to remain calm and act with precision in crucial moments. Therefore, while discipline builds the foundation of the warrior, control is the manifestation of that foundation in specific and calculated actions. One can have discipline without control, resulting in impulsive actions, or control without discipline, leading to inconsistent actions.
What an enlightening analogy with the Zen garden. Osho, I would like to hear your perspective on this distinction between discipline and control.
Look, Rubian, this is a vital distinction for our conscious evolution. Control generally comes from a place of fear and resistance. It's like trying to dam a river, forcing it to follow an artificial path. Inevitably, this approach generates tension and internal conflict. Discipline, when born from awareness, is completely different. It's like nurturing a seed. You don't force its growth, but create favorable conditions for its natural blossoming. True discipline arises from a deep understanding and self-love, not from imposition. When we practice conscious discipline, it becomes a gateway to inner freedom. We are not controlling the mind, but creating space for our natural essence to manifest. It's a journey of expansion and growth, not of domination and suppression.
How revealing! While Musashi shows us how discipline and control have distinct but complementary roles in personal development, Osho makes us see how conscious discipline can be a path to freedom. I now realize that true discipline is not a prison, but a loving cultivation of our potential. Now we come to a fundamental question that takes us even deeper into our exploration. Musashi, is it possible to achieve enlightenment and spiritual growth without first letting go of the illusion of control?
Rubian, this question touches on something very deep. The pursuit of enlightenment and spiritual growth is intrinsically linked to our ability to recognize and let go of the illusion of control. Imagine yourself as a traveler in a drifting boat. If you try to control the currents and the wind, you will waste energy in vain, struggling against forces you cannot dominate. On the other hand, by accepting that control is merely an illusion, you learn the true art of navigation. When we cling to the idea that we can control all the circumstances of life, we remain trapped in a limited view, which inevitably leads to frustration and suffering. True enlightenment arises when we understand that life has its own wisdom and fluidity. Genuine spiritual growth happens in the acceptance of what we cannot change and in the self-understanding that this provides. Detachment from beliefs of control opens space for true and authentic experiences, allowing us to perceive the intrinsic wisdom that already exists within us.
A very profound perspective, especially this analogy of the traveler in the boat. Osho, how do you see this relationship between letting go of control and achieving enlightenment?
Look, Rubian, it is impossible to achieve enlightenment while we are trapped in the illusion of control. Often, our quest for control is an unconscious way of trying to shape life according to our desires and expectations, which distances us from true awareness and acceptance of the present moment. Control is a form of possessiveness, an attachment that prevents us from experiencing life freely. Think of a butterfly. The more you try to hold it, the more likely you are to hurt it. True enlightenment happens when you surrender to the flow of life, allowing yourself to be guided by your essence. This surrender is not a sign of weakness, but rather of great inner strength, where you recognize that you don't need to control everything to have a meaningful life. It's in this freedom that you will begin your true journey of growth and awakening.
Extraordinary. Now I understand that enlightenment is not something we can control or force. It is a natural blossoming that happens when we allow ourselves to let go. Truly very interesting. But I still have another very interesting question. Musashi, is there a point at which the pursuit of control transforms from a motivator into something destructive? How can we identify this crucial moment?
Rubian, this is a very pertinent observation. Yes, there is a critical point where the pursuit of control ceases to be constructive and becomes a destructive force in our lives. It's like an archer who, in trying to control every tiny aspect of their shot, loses the natural fluidity of movement and ultimately undermines their own accuracy. In strategy and combat, I learned that when a warrior becomes obsessive about controlling every detail, they lose the ability to respond to the dynamics of the moment. It's similar to trying to hold on to a cloud. The more you try to capture it, the more it slips through your fingers. The true path lies in balance. It is essential to maintain determination and clarity of purpose, but without falling into the trap of rigidity. Like a wise strategist, we must recognize that we cannot control everything, and it is precisely this understanding that allows us to achieve greater effectiveness in our actions.
Osho, I would like to hear your view on this moment when control ceases to be positive and becomes destructive.
Look, Rubian, control is like a ladder. It can help us climb to a certain point, but if we try to go beyond the last step, we will inevitably fall. At first, this quest for control may seem motivating, a natural way to influence our reality. However, when this need intensifies, it becomes a prison that we build for ourselves. When we observe deeply, we realize that this unchecked desire to control everything is merely a reflection of our deepest fears and insecurities. It not only harms our relationships but also generates an internal tension that manifests as stress and anxiety. True freedom arises when we can recognize and let go of this obsessive need for control. It is like leaving a door open, allowing life to flow naturally instead of trying to force it in directions we believe to be better.
Fascinating how both perspectives complement each other. Musashi shows us how excessive control can undermine our practical effectiveness, while Osho reveals how it can become an emotional prison. Another provoking question that has intrigued thinkers throughout the centuries. Musashi, do you think that the great changes in the history of humanity were the result of control or chaos? How do you see this dynamic?
Rubian, great changes in history emerge from a delicate dance between control and chaos. Imagine a robust river. In its natural bed, the waters flow in order, but when it encounters obstacles or undergoes changes in its course, it creates new paths, completely transforming the landscape around it. Chaos often acts as a catalyst that challenges the status quo, forcing people to adapt and evolve. At the same time, control provides the necessary structure to channel these changes constructively. Look at wars and revolutions. While military control shapes immediate outcomes, it is the emotional reactions and yearnings for justice and freedom that truly generate new paradigms. In the philosophy of the samurai, we learn that true mastery lies not only in mastering challenges but in knowing how to flow with circumstances, adapting to the dynamics of the environment. It is in this balance between order and chaos that we find the seeds of the deepest transformations.
And what about you, Master Osho? How do you see this issue of great historical changes and their relation to control and chaos?
Rubian, notice how the most significant changes often emerge from moments of greatest disorder. Chaos is like a strong wind shaking the tree. Some leaves fall, but this allows new buds to emerge. It is a force that destabilizes rigid structures, opening space for new ideas and forms of life to flourish. In moments of apparent confusion, when old beliefs and paradigms begin to crumble, a fertile space arises for creativity and innovation. However, balance is essential. While chaos provokes new directions, we need moments of introspection and discernment for these ideas to mature and solidify. Excessive control tends to stifle spontaneity and authenticity, like a flower trying to grow inside a very tight box. It is at the intersection of order and chaos that we find the true potential for transformation.
Impressive how both views illuminate different aspects of this truth. Musashi shows us how great changes arise from the interaction between order and chaos, while Osho reveals how chaos can be a regenerating force. I now understand that the deepest transformations come neither from absolute control nor total chaos, but from a harmonious dance between the two. Now, one last question. Musashi, can we learn to see chaos as an ally for growth, rather than an enemy to be controlled?
Rubian, this perspective is fundamental to our evolution. Chaos, when understood properly, can be our greatest teacher. As an experienced warrior knows, it is in moments of greatest challenge that we develop our most refined skills. Think of a wise gardener who understands that even weeds have their purpose. They can indicate imbalances in the soil or protect other plants. In the same way, chaos forces us to develop resilience and creativity, essential qualities for our growth. The secret lies in adopting a learner's posture in the face of chaotic situations. Instead of resisting or trying to impose immediate order, we should observe how we can adapt and evolve through these moments. It is like the process of forging a sword. The metal needs to go through intense heat and transformation to become stronger and more efficient.
What a profound analogy about the gardener and the weeds. Osho, how can we transform our view of chaos from enemy to ally in our growth journey?
Rubian, the problem is not chaos, but our resistance to it. It is fascinating to observe how we cling to the illusion of order when in fact the entire universe operates through a constant dance between order and chaos. Imagine a jazz musician. They do not rigidly follow a score but improvise with the moment, creating beauty from the unexpected. Chaos is like this improvised music of life. When we learn to dance with it, we discover a freedom and creativity that no planning could provide. By embracing chaos as a teacher, we develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and our capacity for adaptation. It is through these seemingly disordered experiences that our consciousness expands and our true potential is revealed.
Extraordinary. Musashi shows us how chaos can be a catalyst for developing essential skills, while Osho reveals how it can be a doorway to deeper freedom. I now realize that chaos is not our enemy, but a valuable teacher that helps us transcend our limitations. Unfortunately, we have reached the end of this impressive conversation. The wisdom shared by Musashi and Osho today has shown us profound perspectives on how we can transcend our obsession with control and find a more authentic freedom. I am immensely grateful to our masters for sharing their knowledge in such a generous and transformative way. If you resonated with our discussion about how excessive control can imprison us, I strongly recommend you watch our video, Why You Are Judged by What You Think and Say, where Krishnamurti and Yogananda explore how we can free ourselves from the judgments that limit us so much. And if you are seeking ways to find peace amidst chaos, be sure to check out The Power of Silence in Life Storms, where Nisargadatta Maharaj and Marcus Aurelius reveal how silence can be our greatest strength in turbulent times. The links are now on the screen. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, this is the perfect moment to become part of this community that seeks knowledge and transformation. Here we always bring deep conversations like this one, which can truly impact your life. Thank you for watching until now, and I wish you to be free from everything that takes away your peace.